Hare Krishna, welcome to the live session with me. My name is Ashtasakhi Dasi. I'm also known as Archana Krishnamurti in my professional life. I am the founder of Conscious Living Center. Along with my friends who are on the journey of living a conscious life, we help educational institutions and the corporate bodies to create a conscious ecosystem. So it could be a conscious education ecosystem or it could be a conscious business ecosystem. We also help people of all age groups learn to live and lead a conscious life. We are very passionate about creating next gen conscious leaders who will be able to create a very conscious society that we believe is the solution to a lot of problems that we see around us today. Now, the objective of these live sessions that I have been hosting every Sunday at 11:30 a.m. India Standard Time is to really talk about the wisdom that is contained in the scripture Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Many of us perceive Bhagavad Gita as a Hindu scripture. I would like to clarify it is not so. Bhagavad Gita, at best, I feel, is like the manual that has been provided to us by our Creator to learn how to live. It has nothing to do with our religious beliefs. Whether we are a male, female, child, man, woman, does not really matter. As long as we are human beings, we should endeavor to learn what has been given in this manual as the right way to live, purpose to live, and the manner in which we are supposed to conduct ourselves while we live in this material world. When we understand the overall objective of what life is, why do we exist, what is our purpose, everything else can be put into place, whether it is prioritizing, making the right choices, creating a livelihood of that kind, so that we can reduce the friction or the contradiction that happens between the different interests that we seem to have in our life. We are also able to make the right kind of choices and decisions about the people we want to have around in our life. We can make the right kind of decisions about how we want to engage and contribute to this world. All that starts with the right understanding. And once we know things, once we understand things, what is important is to really adopt and adapt to those things. So today, the topic of this session is to really discuss attachment with detachment. So the idea during these live sessions is to pick up one topic that we all can relate to in our day-to-day lives and see what we can learn from the wisdom that is contained in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. I have acquired and understood the knowledge, the wisdom that is in Srimad Bhagavad Gita through my Guruji, Swami Bhakti Gaurava Narsingha. And I am attempting to share whatever I have learned with all of you, with the hope and prayer that you all will benefit from it, probably even more than I have. Because as I just mentioned, it's not just about learning it, knowing it, understanding it, but it is all about adopting and adapting to it. So you may have a better capacity to do that than me. I am also a person like you, traveling the journey and understanding things and trying to live a conscious life. And my whole objective is to really help others also do that. So the topic for today I selected because in the last few live sessions, I got a few questions from our regular participants about how should we understand the expectations that we have, the desires that we have, our relationships around us, a happiness or the frustration or the irritation that we kind of sense and experience, the attachments that we seem to have that we know are not necessarily good for us and are not giving us pleasure as we expected, but still we feel we are unable to detach ourselves from those relationships or those aspects of our life. So the question again and again was coming up as to how do we learn to deal with our expectations, which in turn stem from attachment. Now, what do I mean by that? We have expectations, no doubt. But try to ask yourself, I have expectations from who? From people you have a relationship with. And the maximum expectation that you have is from people who you feel closest to. So the more you are attached to a person, the more expectations you have from that person. And whenever your expectations don't, come true, then you feel unhappiness, frustration, or irritation in that relationship. In other words, expectations also can be looked at the desire we have from that relationship. It could be our spouse, it could be our parents, it could be our children, it could be our boss, it could be our peers, it could be our friends, it could be our subordinates. The moment we are able to label a relationship, somehow we seem to have a set of expectations. We don't have the same kind of expectations from somebody who is walking around just and not connected to us, and we don't have any kind of label attached to how we are or we are not connected to that person. So somebody who is, just stays in the same colony or in the same country or somewhere out there in the world, is walking on the street, we are not impacted by what's going on between us. Even if we have expectation, we do have, which is strange, right? We have expectations from even our neighbors, how they should behave with us. We have expectation from our community. We have expectation from people who live in the same place, how they should behave according to us, according to our understanding, what is right. And whenever somebody is not going according to our expectation, we feel irritated, frustrated, almost helpless at times, because we realize that although we would want to change and make everybody understand about our expectations and how that is right for them to do, we feel that is an impossible thing to do, actually, to go and explain to everybody and get them to understand and agree with us, and also change according to our uh, our interests, our expectations. So that is not possible. So now today, let us look at how can we reduce our expectations from people. For that, what we need to do is to really understand, where does this expectation come from. Expectation comes, according to me, from two things. One is what we have understood to be the norm or the standard. And two, the second reason is the desire that we may have, the wish that we may have. Example, if we wish from our parents to understand our interest in, say, art as against in doing business, that is a desire that we have, a wish that we have. But in reality, it may happen that our parents are not able to appreciate our interest in art as much as it is. They think we should have more interest in doing business, learning about business. So our expectations go wrong there. The second is, we think, for example, parents should. The job of a parent is to support a child in what the child wants to do and provide for the child. So we get annoyed when we think our parents are not doing that. We think we can demand that. That's our right, because that is what we have been given to understand. From who? From the entire ecosystem that we have grown in. It could be our own parents, it could be the society that we are living in, it could be the education system that we have been trained into thinking. It could be the kind of books we have read, it could be the kind of friends we have, it could be anything. Anything that is around us that has the capacity to impact us might have impacted and influenced us to have that understanding. So, whether it is a parent, a spouse, a child, a friend, a boss, anybody, a colleague, a subordinate, we have expectations that are stemming from our understanding of what should be, and number two, about the desire or wish we have from that relationship. Now, if you come down, deeper into why do we have desires and expectations attached to certain relationships, that comes from our sense of attachment. Now, we many times we think attachment means, I am, I love eating sweet, or I love going to movies. I love, I love going for a walk, or whatever it may be, right? I love traveling, so I'm attached to these things. True. But let's go deeper today about what do we mean by attachment. Attachment, let us first understand, from the perspective of where does it even stem from. Attachment is nothing but a emotion, a feeling. There's a feeling of attachment. And this attachment function, this emotion function, is something that in our brain, the first thing that you can relate to is a part called amygdala. Last session, also, in another context, we had talked about amygdala and how it impacts our behavior, or how we feel, how we interact with our surrounding. And this time also, amygdala has come to the forefront. So amygdala is a small, almond shaped thing which is just behind the frontal lobe on both sides of our brain. And it is, between the conscious and the subconscious part of the brain. And in a way, you can say that is what connects the two. But this is one almond shaped thing that actually is more like a animalistic in its behavior and responds to anything that it is exposed to. And it is mainly meant to actually protect us from dangers. So this is the one that actually helps us, come up with our involuntary action of screaming, jumping up, running away, any of those things that we do, or pushing something off when we feel scared of something, right? So this is amygdala. It is not thinking, it's not yet figured out what that is, but immediately it makes us do what it thinks is right for us to stay protected or defend ourselves from any potential danger. Now, what happens is, if you see from birth, a child is attached to his or her mother from birth. But remember, when we say from birth, already from the time the child has started coming into existence, it has been 9 months of its exposure to its mother within the mother's womb. So it's kind of, got used to the feel of its mother and already feels very safe and secure with its mother. So when it's born, it does not know how the mother's face is, or how a mother looks, or how important is a mother for its nurturing. But so far, what it has seen is all the energy it needs, or the food that it requires, or the comfort it requires is provided by that mother. So a child is naturally attracted and attached to its mother. So basically, attachment is for security, attachment is for comfort, attachment is for safety. And anything that is the opposite or gives us the opposite feeling of this, discomfort, threat, fear, we don't feel attached to. We want to run away from that as far as possible, don't we? So that is the story. Attachment is a feeling of wanting to feel safe, secure in a particular surrounding. We feel attached to that. The moment we don't feel safety, we feel threatened, we feel danger, we cannot be attached to that. So please understand and look into every so called attachment that you find in your life. Where is that attachment emanating from? And if that attachment is related to a sense of safety, security, or whatever it provides, then be grateful for that. But if you are expecting, now, what we do many times is we know that a mother should be comforting, a mother should be providing, a mother should be loving. And whenever we find anything that goes against any of these feelings for us in a mother, we feel perplexed. We feel confused. Sometimes we may even feel hatred. But remember, all this is because we are having this understanding of what a relationship should do the moment we have labeled it. So be careful about labeling a relationship. This is my child. This is my life. This is my husband. This is my wife. This is my father. This is my mother. The problem really starts at the labeling stage. The moment you label things right, starting from yourself, that you are that blissful, eternal soul, which is meant to serve the Supreme Creator in its blissful state. And everything else that is provided to you, including your own body, your material life, is meant to be utilized in the service of the Supreme Creator. That's it. Utilize it. Know how to utilize it and know also what to utilize it for. If you have a husband or a wife, know what are your prescribed duties, do those duties, and together do what you're meant to do in service. If it's your community, your children, your parents, your boss, your assistant, your organization, whatever, everything has been provided to us to engage it in the service of the Supreme Lord, who is the only one who actually owns anything. Even we are owned by Him, whether we recognize it or we don't. So let me just share, a few interesting things that I found while I was doing some research to speak to all of you about this topic of attachment with detachment. So one of the things, of course, as I said, is, it starts off at amygdala level, and attachment is a feeling or emotion. And there are 4 kinds of attachment that can be found in a adult human. One is secure. So I feel attached in a very secured way. I feel secure with somebody. I feel attached to that person. Anxious, preoccupied. So basically, it means I feel attached to being preoccupied because it takes care of my anxiety. So, what are we saying? Anything unknown is fearful for us. So, we want to be engaged so that we are not able to think of the unknown and feel the fear. This is another kind of attachment. We want to be always engaged. We want to be busy for the sake of being busy, because otherwise, the moment we are free, we start getting into areas which are not known to us, and therefore we find a little bit of discomfort in getting into those areas and even thinking by ourselves. We try to get away from that by just doing something that we know how to do and we know how it makes us feel, whether we like it or not. And we're attached to being busy. So many of us, you will realize, are busy for the sake of being busy. Then there are dismissive avoidant. Then there are some people who feel discomfort, who feel insecure, but they don't want to accept it, dwell into that, or even do anything about it. So they are the people who try to dismiss that feeling, and they're attached to doing that. They just want to dismiss any feeling that comes to them that disturbs them or makes them feel uncomfortable. So there are people who just avoid stuff and do nothing about it. Then the fourth kind are the fearful avoidant. So the people who actually just feel fear with everything. Oh my God, now today COVID is happening. People are dying. It might come to me. So I close my doors, windows. I stay away from people overly. And I just like all the time, the only thing I can do is to think about it and do nothing about it. So I'm unable to take what is being said in the way it is meant to be taken. For example, using the same example of COVID, what is being said is not to stop living. Go out, do what you need to do, but go out only when you have to. Don't roam around. Yes. When you go, follow certain precautions like wearing a mask or keeping certain distance in public. Do what you need to do. If you touch some surface or you're doing something, from time to time go and keep washing your hand, or try to avoid touching your nostrils and mouth from where you might get infected. So there are do's and don'ts being prescribed. But if a person gets into that fearful state of being, you're unable to understand what is being said, what to talk about adopting it, right? So these are four kinds of attachment that is being mentioned. And usually the kind that you become depends on your very early interactions with your ecosystem or your mother. So suppose you, when you were conceived and your mother was pregnant with you, if she went through certain traumatic situations, you unfortunately are born with that kind of attitude. And you are kind of attached to being in that kind of place because that's all you are aware of. If things are too good, too quiet, too peaceful, which you're not used to, frankly, believe me, although it would be the safest thing for you, you would not feel secure and safe because you are, for you, it's a new thing. So always when something scares you or something, you feel discomforted, it may be something new, it may be something different, but don't jump to the conclusion that it's not a good thing. Pause there, observe what is happening, go into that, understand it, and then let your conscious mind decide for you whether it's a good thing or not. The other thing that I actually got is, somebody was asking, for example, is love an attachment? Love is also emotion, a feeling. Attachment is also a feeling and emotion, as we talked. So, yes, But then when we say, fall in love, like be attached but with detachment, what does that mean? Whether it is with your husband, wife, the spouse, your parents, your children, you cannot be completely just detached, okay? Our mind has to be attached to something. That's how the mind is created, by the way. So the choice that you have is what do you attach it to, and how much, and how consciously you live with that attachment, knowing well what and how much is good for you and when are you crossing that line. So basically, when we say, in your loving relationships, be attached but with detachment, what we mean is, be attached but don't be dependent. Be attached but don't be needy. Also, it is not dependent on how that other person loves you or reciprocates your love. It is irrespective of that. Your love should be, your attachment is healthy and can be called a love when it is unconditional. When you love somebody or something because of something that you value, and you don't have conditions attached, I will love that person only if that person reciprocates like this to my love. That is, getting unhealthy for you and for that whole relationship. So beware of that. Also, sometimes, some of us have this thing about ourselves, and sometimes I have to watch that in myself. I will ignore what I have to do, or what we say as we abandon our own work, or what we need to do as an interest, but we are busy solving others problem. Sometimes we have to learn to let them solve their own problem. We have to trust that they have been gifted with that too, and they will figure it out sooner or later. They may do it differently than us. They may take a little longer than how we think we can solve it. But let them do it, because while we think we are doing it in their interest, in the long run, when you spoon feed or you try to help others more than they deserve or desire, it is actually harmful for them, and it's almost disrespectful for them. So, how do we actually do things for others without getting into their space overly for their own evolution and growth is a very sensitive thing for all of us to think and be careful about. Many times in our most loving relationship, the closest of the relationship, probably this is one of the things that we falter on. I love my child, I care about my child, so I overdo for that child, and actually disabling that child to become independent of me almost, or taking care of certain things that would be good for him or her to learn for his or her own good in future. We sometimes try to attach our ego with the most loved one, so we overly try to dictate, for example, the kind of dress my spouse would wear, or how he interacts with others, or how he looks. While yes, it does bother you, but then you have to caution yourself that you should not try to dictate terms. Be available there to support, to even share what you think, but do it only to the extent it can be received and is also advantageous to the person. So, what I mean by that, sometimes, though your child or your husband, your wife, or somebody may be willing to listen. Now, I know of an old couple, wonderful, lovely couple in their 80s and 90s, who seem today like that. So that auntie is actually very independent, very intelligent, gifted individual, amazing. Uncle is so too, but what uncle has done in that loving relationship is probably he's trying to overprotect that aunt. and do everything for her. He never allows her to even, share what she wants to share because he thinks he can think better for her than she can. So, for example, he would go to a restaurant and he would, say, hey, what would you like to have? And before the aunt could think and utter a word, uncle would decide, hey, you know what? Why don't we get, two dosas and two idlis and share one dosa each and one idli each and stuff like that. And he makes the decision for her and she ends up just nodding to him. They have a lovely relationship. But somewhere you feel when you look at the aunt that she had more to grow into. And probably in all the love that he has, the care that he has for her, he has not allowed her to blossom enough. And you know what is happening as he's getting older? There's a fear that is setting in him. What if something happens to him and she has to live on? How will she live? He thinks she doesn't even know how to go to the bank or fill a withdrawal slip or a deposit slip. She wouldn't know anything. She's too simple. She doesn't even know how to order anything for herself in a hotel. What will she do? But this is how he thinks about her because that is what he has seen of her. And she's probably adopted that response and nature more and more because she thinks that, allows him to have the satisfaction of taking care of her and also probably avoids the trouble that she has to take to make any decision. And anyway, he's taking such good care of her. Why should she bother? Now, I will leave all of you to think, is that good or not? Is this attachment? And can this attachment be converted into attachment with detachment, which basically means a conscious sense of attachment? Right? Um, and then I would like to actually go through a few things that I saw in Bhagavad Gita about detachment. Now, we spoke enough about attachment. What is really detachment? How do we understand it from Bhagavad Gita? And I'll share that with you and then open the room for discussions. In the meantime, if any of you already have some questions, you can start typing in the chat box and we'll get to that as soon as I finish reading this section in Bhagavad Gita. So in chapter 6, verse 34, Arjuna is sharing his predicament with Lord Krishna. Chanchalam hi manaha Krishna pramathi balavad dridam tasyaham nigraham manye vayor iva sudushkaram. The mind is erratic, disturbed, very powerful, and stubborn. O Krishna, I think that to control it is difficult as trying to control the wind. Why we say that? There are so many things. We all know too much of attachment is not good, that we should not be over possessive in our relationships. We should give some space. We should have trust. We should be a little detached. We should be taking care of ourselves before we can take care of others, blah, blah, blah. But in spite of knowing all that, we have problem in controlling ourselves from again and again getting into the same faulty behavior. And that is because of the way our mind is. Our mind decides for us what it wants to do. We end up speaking before we want to speak. We end up reacting before we can think how we should react. The mind is controlling our behavior, our action, our life. And we need to therefore control our mind in order to consciously manage our lives and lead our lives. But this mind is not an easy thing to manage, to control. And that is what we are talking about. So Arjuna is asking, while you're saying become a yogi, be detached, surrender yourself, offer everything to me, be grateful, know that everything is a gift, you are supposed to just do your duty. This is your prescribed duty, just stick to that. Don't worry about the results of your action. Just dedicate all your actions up unto me. But knowing all this, Krishna is asking, but for ordinary human beings like us, in spite of knowing all this, our mind seems to not be in control of us. What should we do? Krishna says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Asamshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Kalam Abhyasena tu Kaunteya Vairagyena cha Grihiyate. Bhagavan Shri Krishna replied, O mighty armed one, indeed the mind is unsteady and very difficult to control. However, it is possible to control the mind by practice and detachment, O son of Kunti. I'll continue reading because, instead of explaining here, because the explanation will come in the reading that I'm going to continue. In chapter 15, which is about Purushottama Yoga, Bhagavan Shri Krishna says, it has been told that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots above, its branches below, and its leaves are the Vedic mantras. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. Some branches of this tree spread upwards and others grow downwards, nourished by the modes of nature. The twigs on the tree are the sense objects, and the roots that extend downwards reach the human plane and are the cause of the binding activities of human society. The form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. Indeed, none can fully comprehend where the tree begins, where it ends, or where its foundation lies. One must cut down this strong rooted system, banyan tree, with the weapon of detachment and search out that place from which, once having gone, one never returns. One must take shelter of the Supreme Person from whom all things have originated from time immemorial. In the commentary given by my Guruji, Swami B.G. Narasingha, he says, herein the material world is compared to a great banyan tree whose roots are above and branches below and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns, etc. This is an analogy of the material world as a reflection of reality whose origin, foundation, and end are fully indiscernible to conditioned living beings in the grasp of material illusion. One must cut through this illusion with the weapon of detachment and search out knowledge of the supreme abode of Krishna. So, in short, friends, what I understand by this is attachment is that emotion because of which we get bound in this material world. And for all of us who are interested in understanding the ultimate goal of life, world, we need to understand that while attachment is that emotion that binds us to this world and creates all the problem that comes with it, detachment is the weapon or the tool given to us to transcend this material world. Right? The next part that I would like to read is from chapter 18, which is the last chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, which is called Moksha Yoga. Therein, I'll just like to read verse 1 and 2. Arjuna said, O mighty armed one, O Rishikesha, O killer of the Keshi demon, I wish to understand the true meaning of renunciation, which is sannyasa, and detachment, that is tyaga, as well as the difference between them. So please understand, many times while we are talking, we say, hey, I have to do what I have to do. I can't take sannyas and go away, man. So, attachment is for us grahasthas, we people, the ordinary guys who are in the family life, who have children, who have spouse, who have parents, and etc. And detachment is actually for the renunciates or the sannyasis who detach themselves from the world and go away. But this is where I want to correct ourselves that actually there is a way to live where you can utilize your attachment if it can be combined with a conscious detachment. So you need to actually become a tyagi, if not a sannyasi, while you are living even a grahastha life with everything that you need to do as your duty. Bhagavan Sri Krishna replied, those who are intelligent realize that sannyasa means the renunciation of activities performed for personal benefit. Tyaga refers to the renunciation of all activities. Now listen to this very carefully. Sannyas, many people feel he's a sannyasi. Why is he behaving like that or engaging himself in this or that? Before we make that judgment, please see what a sannyasi should be and understand that properly. A sannyasi is not meant to just go away to the Himalayas, leaving everything at his disposal. A sannyasi is one who can engage everything that he has been gifted with, including his own knowledge, skill, attribute, body, mind, emotion, everything, along with the material stuff that he has been provided with, whether it is money, whether it is the comfort that he has been provided with, in the service of the Supreme Lord. And the best service that a sannyasi engaged in is to help others understand about their ultimate goal of life and help them go back to the spiritual world of bliss. That is what a sannyasi is. So he needs to make use of everything at his disposal, including his body, his words, his emotions, his intellect, the car, the money, the land, whatever he gets for that purpose. So that is what a sannyasi. Tyagi is somebody who just renunciates completely, doing any action and goes away. But one thing we need to remember is a mind cannot be asked to just detach and do nothing. We are compelled to attach it to something or the other. And that is the conscious choice we need to make. What do we want to attach it to? So I'll read the last segment before we conclude the session today. This I'm reading as verse 4 of chapter 18. O best of the Bharata dynasty, O tiger amongst men, please listen to my conclusion concerning the three modes of renunciation. The three types of renunciation that everybody has to follow, everybody, including a grahastha, an ordinary citizen, while we follow our own prescribed duty based on the the structure that we have talked about, the varna ashrama structure. Wherever we fall, according to that, we are supposed to follow our duties. But wherever we fall, everybody has been recommended to follow three types of renunciation. One is sacrifice, charity, and austerity should never be given up. Sacrifice, charity, and austerity purify even the wise. So even if you feel that you know it, you have the wisdom, even then it is being prescribed by Lord Sri Krishna that we should never leave these three kinds of renunciations. One is to sacrifice something that we are attached to continue doing charity, absolutely conscious kind of charity. We should know what are we giving, who are we giving, how are we giving before we just give. And austerity, just detaching from certain comforts that we like, but we would need to do some austerities, like even the ekadasi fasting and stuff like that, which we should do, which actually helps our entire being become purified. However, even these activities must be performed without attachment to the results. This is my definite and supreme conclusion on this matter. This is what Lord Sri Krishna is almost saying in his concluding remarks in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. That while we are engaged in renunciation also, sacrifice, charity, and austerity, we should do it with results. Now, this is where attachment with detachment comes. We need to understand it to be able to adopt it and adapt it. So, what do I mean? what we have been talking. How do I want to connect this to that? So now let's take the life of a grahastha, the man of the house, or one of the adults is sacrificing his comfort to provide for the rest of the family members. There is another individual who is engaging all the time and comfort that one has to provide in kind. For example, somebody is cooking or cleaning or taking care or giving bath or ironing the clothes or washing the clothes or washing the utensils, whatever you may be doing. So you are actually sacrificing your comforts, your interests for a greater good. Now, this is what you do in love for yours, your family, as a duty. Now, sometimes what happens, friends, is while we are doing this for extended period of time, we start having expectations from others. If I am doing this, in return, what do I get? Many people ask this. Why should I do this? Why me? Yeah. The moment we have this question and we try to even answer, I do this because, then we have already fallen into the trap of attachment. We need to get away from that. If we can just do it as a sense of duty, in the sense of love with no attachment, I feel nice to be able to do something for my loved ones. And this is where, when we do it as a sense of duty, we will not overdo it. Do it as much as it is necessary to be done. At the right age, when your child needs to learn some independence, let him or her learn that. Sometimes we do this mistake. Oh, child, you please just focus on studies. I will take care of the rest. I think not necessary to study for 24 bar 7. They can learn at a particular age to take care of other things also for themselves. It's a good habit to inculcate at a young age, to take care of the rooms, to take care of their clothes, do some of the things that they can do to help you in the kitchen or whatever it is. It is a good habit to engage them in the service of other people and to understand and behave responsibly. You can inculcate this in your child, be it a boy or a girl, from the right kind of age. Otherwise, when the child is already 25 or 30, suddenly that person will not change and become somebody else and have this enlightenment of a responsibility. And then, even if you regret, there is very little you can do. So you need to be conscious of that. Even when you're doing something for your better half, your husband or wife, your spouse, you need to really know where to put a stop to doing things in love or concern. We think if I don't do, then the person will not survive. It's actually not true. And if it is true, then it's better that we teach the person to survive without us, because what's the guarantee we will always be there for that person? Sometimes I have seen some of those men or women suffer the most who were taken care of overly by their spouse till they were alive. And suddenly, when they left, they were shattered. Some of my relations, some of my friends I know, who did not know how to cross a road, how to go to the bank, how to buy anything. They never did. How to cook, how to fold their clothes. They did not know. And this was a big problem. Sometimes it was you know a man, sometimes it was a woman. And because of age or because of other things, we travel the journey all alone. We have come alone, we'll go alone. Very few fortunate couples may exit this world together. But otherwise, we will all go when our time comes. And the best thing we can do in the interest of our loved one is to prepare them to be on their own while we are still here. so that when we go, we're not worried about them. We have done a good job. I hope you get me. There is a certain class of philosophers and spiritual seekers in India that say that the world is false and that all activities should be given up if one wants to achieve perfection in human life. But this is not the conclusion of Sri Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says that one must act according to one's nature and that beneficial works such as sacrifice, charity, and austerity should never be abandoned, for they are purifying even for the wise. Verse 7, the renunciation of one's prescribed duties is improper. Giving them up out of bewilderment is said to be in the mode of ignorance. So, if you are in a grahastha ashrama, just running away from what you are supposed to do, one, because of ignorance, simply, I'm not aware that I should be doing my duties, so I'm ignorant about it. They don't do, that's not right. The second one is passionate, so I feel that's too difficult, that's taxing on me, therefore I don't do, so that's a. It is impossible for those who have accepted a material body to totally renounce all activities. However, one who renounces the results of his action is known as a true renunciate. So try, friends, while you are where you are, to engage yourself with what you need to engage with by not being attached to what you get in return, but doing it with a sense of duty, sense of purpose. And for that, therefore, I'll come back. Even if you want to lead a life of happiness, which results from having attachment with detachment, most important thing is to really acquire the right kind of knowledge first on what is life, who are you, what is your purpose in life, and then engage yourself in that while you are doing everything else that you understand as your prescribed duty. It will lead you to your blissful state that you are, and it will remove all the conflicts and frustrations and unhappiness that you may be inflicting on yourself because of lack of understanding. So I hope this was useful, friends. Before I end the session, are there any questions that any of the participants have? You can kindly post it in the chat, and I would be happy to address that. So, as I'm mentioning in the chat box, friends, I would either welcome you to ask any questions you may still have about the topic that we discussed, or you may want to share anything either from your personal experience, or you might want to comment on some aspect of what we spoke today. I hope it has been helpful. So I will wait for the next minute or so to see if anybody has any particular question. If not, I would like to conclude the session. Okay, friends, since I don't see anybody typing anything, I guess there are no questions. Thank you so much. I hope you have benefited. I look forward to having all of you again for the next session next Sunday, same time, 11:30. I request if you have any topic that you would want us to touch upon, and also take the wisdom from Srimad Bhagavad Gita on that topic, I will be very happy. Please send it to me at least by Wednesday so that I can prepare for the session on that topic. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Stay safe, stay blessed. See you again. Bye bye.